Are you feeling overwhelmed by hormonal changes? If you're a woman, you're not alone. With over 1,000 hormone disruptors in our environment, it's no wonder things can feel out of balance. On top of that, natural changes like PMS, menopause, and other life stages can leave you feeling tired, irritable, and trapped in a constant battle with your body. But here's the good news. You don't have to suffer through it. Hormone Harmony by Happy Mammoth is here to help. This herbal formula fine-tunes your hormones, balancing estrogen, testosterone, and even stress hormones like cortisol, which can contribute to weight gain, racing thoughts, poor sleep, and more. With over 40,000 five-star reviews and a bottle selling every 24 seconds, the results speak for themselves. Ready to feel like yourself again? For a limited time, get 15% off your first order at happymammoth.com using code NEXTCHAPTER at checkout. Visit happymammoth.com today and get your old self back naturally.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help you when you need it, so your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
Hey folks, welcome to the Unsung Podcast. My name is Ray fucking Purchase. I'm joined by Stephen Toast.
You're joined by Clem Fandango.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yes. See, I get the references.
Yeah.
I'm hip.
Oh, is that a hip thing?
It's probably not hip at all. No. It's probably a total boomer thing, isn't it?
Yeah, kids are watching Abbott Elementary now.
What is that?
One of the most popular sitcoms in America. It's like set in it's kind of like The Office, but set in a elementary school in America.
I need to start going to night classes to catch up on youth culture. They could do that, you know.
They should
in
do
the
that.
same way as we force children to go through history class, children could force older people to go through contemporary culture class so that we're not so fucking embarrassing.
I'm not mad about it. Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Someone should make that into a business.
There you go. How you doing?
I'm alright, how you doing?
Yeah, what's your favourite Christmas song?
Fuck, I've been asked this so many times. And All I Want for Christmas Is You.
Okay. All I Want for Christmas is Julie.
It's Julie, yeah.
We're going to do Julie Christmas.
Oh, so you're asking me what my favourite Julie Christmas song is? Was that?
No, it was just a bit.
Right,
It's just a thing that I'd worked on, off stage. Just like that. This will go down well.
It went down well.
Yeah, it did.
I appreciated it.
We'll put in the canned laughter, it'll be fine. I'm fine, thanks. It's sunny outside, even though we've got the curtains drawn to try and make this lighting system.
It's the only day it's been like, so the heavens opened on Sunday.
It was
and
raining
it was
this
horrible
morning
yesterday,
as well.
and it was raining this morning.
Welcome to Scotland.
It's just come out again. I mean, we actually had, if you're not from Scotland, we had 2.5 weeks of unbroken sunshine.
It was weird.
It was actually, I saw online like they'd taken a photo of Scotland and there was no clouds over the entire country, which is just fucking insane.
What does that even look like? It's cryptoids visible for space everywhere.
I know. Which is totally weird. Like that never happens. So
yeah, very odd. But everybody's reasonably cheery. It's not been a particularly aggressive couple of weeks.
Yeah, and
it's not hot enough for folk to get delirious.
Totally. And I think it does actually made me realise that Scotland's actually quite a beautiful place.
It's alright.
But a lot of the time it's just fucking grey.
Take a wee stroll down Union Street after this and see how good you feel.
Ocean Colour Scene are playing tonight in the Academy, and it's next to the subway where I'm going to go off, so that'll be good.
Oh, that's your kind of people.
These human fucking garbage.
They're alright. They're all mums and dads now as well. Just be having a wee drink in the Lauriston and then heading up the road. Kids will be at school in the morning.
Aye.
Or in jail.
In fact, they're probably past that age now. Their kids are grown. Their kids like in their 20s.
Kids will be at school in the morning.
Yeah, totally. Grandparents.
But no, I mean, it's this. We had a week off as well. That's worth mentioning. Sorry about that, but
Well, sometimes life gets in the way.
Aye, it takes a lot of work, but also partly it was in service of the podcast, because we have a very, very cool interview coming up at the end of this month, and there's a lot of prep required for it. So I spent this entire week reading about neo-Nazis. Nothing unusual there.
Yeah, sounds like a regular week.
yeah, but this time with a purpose, and rereading stuff that I'd already read when I wasn't expected to. But no, we're doing a lot of work for that. When are we actually going to announce that?
Whenever you want, you can do it right now, because it'll be 2 episodes from this, maybe 3.
3 probably. We'll do it at the end of the episode.
Yeah,
we'll do it. Right, stick around. So it's, I think, up there with one of our most exciting interviews we've managed to secure, certainly for my particular.
Yes, it's a very crisp guest for sure. It's very well in your milieu. So.
yeah, that's why I'm so excited. Okay, but that all said, we're not going to talk about that for the duration of this show. I don't think I've got a single neo-Nazi note in this entire thing. That's nice.
That is nice.
That is nice. We're going to talk about Julie Christmas. That is a woman, and also the name of a project. And so Julie Christmas is her solo project. She is probably best known, or at least her music's best known, as a singer of Made Out of Babies.
You say that, but like that's good. They've got so little listens on Spotify compared to her music.
Yeah, but they're kind of a cult band, and the whole tie-in with Neurosis and stuff. I still think they're probably the most prominent point of her career.
Oh, Ridiculous and Full of Blood, the album that came out in 2024, was really, really well received in the press. I know a lot of people that got into her because of Cult of Luna as well.
That's true. Yeah, she did a split with Cult of Luna. She's been on the pod before as part of the discussion of Mariner. Cult of Luna, which actually, although it wasn't the record we nominated, I think that was Somewhere Along the Highway. I think it was probably as good as.
It's a phenomenal record.
Aye, and she did Battle of Mice. We'll go through all these in a bit of detail, but this week we're going to focus on a record that came out that is a solo project, but it goes under the name The Bad Wife, and the record is called The Bad Wife.
If you go away on that summer's day, then you might as well take the sun away. All the birds that flew.
I don't The Bad Wife or The Bad Wife?
The Bad Wife.
The Bad Wife.
It is often considered to be her first solo record as well.
Yeah, it is. Just a bit different, and we'll dive into why that is. Now, there's not really lots of lore to go around Julie Christmas. She's not got into like any huge traffic accidents that I'm aware of, or accidentally killed anybody that I'm aware of. She seems to be quite nice. I watched some interviews, likes a chat. Saw one interview where she couldn't find any mascara and the thing was about to go on, so she used a Sharpie, which is fair play. Good luck scrubbing that off.
Anything going near my eyes gives me the fear, so just putting a Sharpie near them.
There you go. It looked amazing, but it wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
We're just probably going to analyse the music in a bit more depth than we usually would, at least in terms of the style of it. But we'll do a little bit of background on it. But I guess before we do any background, had you encountered any of her work in any sort of detail prior to this?
Just the Cult of Luna, just Mariner, when we did that episode on them, when Dave was still with us, God rest his soul. I'll be missing him. And I knew of her through that. I did listen to Ridiculous and Full of Blood last year, but it didn't really click with me. And there's probably a few reasons why it clicked more with me now. I think it's largely got to do with a lot of the things we've done recently. You know,
You've been primed.
Yeah, if you was for the past 6 months or so, we've been kind of moving around this kind of post-hardcore, post-rocky, post-metal-y kind of things, you know. Really, the next thing we need to do is like go back to a post-punk band. I think that's the only piece we've missed over the past however many months we've been doing this. So there is a theme, I think. I'm
kind of surreptitiously sort of schooling you and preparing you for an onslaught of nothing but noise rock, which is probably my kind of like main.
We've done
thing.
Insane and stuff like that.
There's a wee bit.
We've
of
not done Insane actually. We've interviewed Chris.
We talked a bit about them.
Haven't done Insane.
They'll get a shout out today. I mean, Made Out of Babies is not the sort of like original old OG noise rock, but it is sort of the generation that came after it. And I think a lot of the people that were into the OG noise rock were really hot for Made Out of Babies when they came out, because they did it well and took it forward into the 2000s.
Yeah,
and not a lot of bands were really doing it at that time.
Yeah, but a bit of a sidebar here, I think, as well. It's probably worth saying that I know a lot of people who are into like Unsane, who love Helmet and are not really into what you would call noise rock. They've kind of come to them from like metal or post-hardcore. And that's kind of what I lean to when I hear this kind of stuff. You know, I hear like the fugaziness of it and all that. It doesn't feel noisy to me.
Okay.
But I know there is some noise rock which is genuine, like we've done Oxbow, for example, and that is...
I mean, you can pretty much make a good argument for any record as being a noise rock record if it has that grinding bass tone.
I suppose,
if it has that sort of plectrum played, crunchy, clanky sort of thing.
That's how I like my bass to sound.
Maybe you're a noise rock bassist.
Maybe.
Oh goodness, you'd have a
I think I need it much better than I am.
No pink t-shirts in that genre. Anyway, like Julie Christmas, her real name is Julie Christmas Bateman. It's her legal middle name, but she was born on Christmas Day 1975. I think a key thing to mention about Julie Christmas is her vocal style, the approach. We actually discussed something very similar, I think, back when we interviewed Katie Jane Garside of Queen Adrena, Daisy Chainsaw, numerous other projects.
I'm pretty like drugs, 'cause I'm pretty like drugs. I'm pretty like drugs, 'cause I'm pretty like drugs. I'm pretty like drugs. I'm pretty like drugs. I'm pretty like drugs.
Katie Jane Garside and Julie Christmas, I think, have a very similar quality to their vocal. They've got a bit of range. They've got a manic energy to it. They can go very soft and eerie and sort of like almost like music box cutesy with it, and then ferocious screams hidden in there as well. And they use all of that sometimes within the range of not just one song but one passage. And that kind of volatility was something that made both singers really, really click with me. I loved the variety that was in there. Julie Christmas can sound incredibly fragile and frequently does, especially in the record that we're doing.
Cuts on your cheek say you've been somewhere wrong.
As I say though, she's said herself in some interviews that she was most inspired by singers that had really strong ranges and high notes. She mentioned Cyndi Lauper and I think Aretha Franklin as two female singers when she was growing up that she really looked up to. Although she did mention that a big turning point in her musical career came due to a car trip that she went on, where she ended up listening to Tom Waits, and Tom Waits was somebody she'd always been quite resistant to, and then she ended up on this car trip with a friend and her sister. Her sister was sticking on nothing but like metal. She was like a big Sepultura bolt thrower fan. Meanwhile, her friend put on half an hour of Tom Waits, and she said it just suddenly clicked. And again, he is a guy that we've spoken about certainly in his later career, where there's a manic energy, like a kind of slight madness in his vocals, especially around about that kind of Mule Variations era and, you know, big in Japan.
and love the way I do it. Hey, oh, there's really nothing to it. I got the moon, I got the cheese, I got the whole damn nation on their knees.
When he really sort of started to mess around with his vocal and get a wee bit wild. So
Yeah.
she seems to have taken a lot from that, even though she doesn't sound at all like Tom Waits.
Bit of those extended vocal techniques, extended range stuff, which all the metal singers use. But I think her voice is the key thing, right? It's astounding.
Mm-hmm.
It is astounding. When she's singing the kind of softer stuff, it reminds me of Björk quite a lot. Björk has also got a large vocal range.
There's a couple of points in this where I think she does sound in her career. I'll pick them out where she sounds almost a bit like Björk. I mean, I think there's a gender dynamic to extreme vocal sections. You know, there's a different quality that we could probably unpack via an extended thesis on male versus female rage and aggression, and I'm sure there's PhDs out there that have done that. But I do think the singers themselves subtly play in that. I think Katie Jean Garside, Courtney Love, Julie Christmas, they know their most ferocious moments have an added sense of shock because it's coming from a female vocalist, you know, participating in a largely male vocal realm.
Can I jump in just for a wee sec here on that point? That's one of the things that made Rollo Tomasi, like when they started, like really stand out.
Yeah.
You know, when you see them, like all of them going absolutely tonto, and it's a woman who's doing that really fucking feral vocal.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see it live, and that scene was very male dominated, you know, they were kind of in that kind of emo post-hardcore scene, even though they weren't that kind of band, but that was the circles they moved in back at the start.
Yeah, I know, because we played with them.
Yeah.
He did not sound like them.
Yeah, totally. So that was one of the standout factors of like, oh fuck, okay, that's coming from a woman. That sounds sexist because it was sexist. Do you know what I mean? That's what the thinking was at the time. It was like, that feels weird. At the time, it kind of felt weird.
Yeah.
You know.
Allow me to try and hopefully.
That sounds, by the way, that sounds sexist, but that was how a lot of people felt at that time.
Well,
you know,
I think on both our behalves, I can maybe steer that in a direction that resolves quite nicely, right? Because we'd be stupid to not acknowledge that there is a form of a novelty factor there when in a male-dominated space, especially really heavy music. I'm sure, is it the band Gel are kind of experiencing that as well, where there is an...
Not anymore. They just broke up.
Have they?
Yeah, the guitarist. There's drama, a lot of drama.
Oh goodness,
a lot of drama.
That never happens. Drama.
He sounds like a bad dude.
Anyway, so bands that are fronted by female vocalists who have a particularly intense and confrontational style, yes, there is unavoidably a novelty factor in there because it's a male-dominated, not just a male-dominated industry, but a male-dominated part of the industry. However, I thought about this a lot this week, right? And if you were to ask me who are my favourite vocalists, yeah, there's guys in there that I think are great. They're not actually all very good singers. I mean, I think David Yau's a brilliant vocalist. He's definitely not a good singer. It's the personality. But especially in heavy music, I think that Julie Christmas and Katie Jean Garside in particular are top 5 for me in heavy music. Because if I'm being honest, I find male vocals in heavy music typically very boring.
Yeah.
There is very little new that can be done with men getting, oh, he's done a singing bit, oh, now he's growling, oh, doesn't he sound angry? It's something that's worn really, really thin, and people are still doing it to death. And I think we spoke a wee bit about this on the Cult of Luna episode, but I was like, Cult of Luna at points are musically brilliant, but it inevitably just descends into, oh, this song has to get more intense, so I'm gonna go. And you're like, is that it?
Yeah.
Is that your only trick? I mean, I like Unsane. I love Chris's voice. He doesn't do that. He's just got like this naturally raspy, horrible, brilliant, horrible voice. I don't think there's a lot of vocalists just are gifted with a really character-filled voice and can be brilliant, heavy singers without just resorting to dead, rote, cliched vocal things. Jacob Bannon has a lot of range in the heavy field. I like it when he does the more post-hardcore stuff, but when he does the more black metal stuff, he's good, blah, blah, blah. So he covers a lot of bases. But generally speaking, I think male vocalists in heavy bands are more often than not fucking boring. And actually, Julie Christmas and Katie Jane Garside, putting aside all of the inverted commas novelty factor of the fact that they're female vocalists in a traditionally male space, are just better. There's more range, there's more violence in the way that their style whiplashes from one to another. One thing that is open to them as an option that I'm going to say it's not open to men. I suppose it is open to men, but certainly very, very few men choose to utilise it, is the kind of coos and whispers and stuff. So a lot of the time I described it as like music box cute. They do the little thing like that. And it's useful because then going from doing that to rah, like that is hugely dynamic and really, really effective. Sometimes a little bit too much, but when it's used well, it's hugely effective. Tell me a male vocalist that does that. The only one I could think of that even tries it because he's so fascinated with The Cure and New Romantics and stuff is maybe Chino Moreno, who's done that, I think, now and then, and sometimes very, very well. But by and large, male heavy vocalists never attempt that. And I think any that did would probably sound fucking irritating.
Yeah. I think one vocalist that jumped to mind when you said that he was a male was Daryl Podlimbo and some of the Glassjaw stuff. He's able to go from that to fire breathing.
Yeah, but he did that thing that's like a toddler that's like tired but sell it for greeting.
He moves away from that, and like there's been discussion a few times of maybe doing one of the EPs on this show. Yeah. And that would be an example of him doing that without sound, because he's like, the band had moved on musically by that point. I was just going to say though, there's a lot of really great female vocalists now in hardcore bands, and it's really awesome to see, because it does bring it isn't novelty, it just brings a freshness to it.
Aye, but to be fair, regardless of the gender identity of the vocalist in a hardcore band or a metal band, if all they're doing is the one thing and it always goes back to the same old trope, then I'm still going to find it boring. I think there's a range of options that are available to women in those spaces that make it potentially more interesting. And I do just think that these two vocalists, Julie this week, but obviously Katie Jane Garside we've spoken about before, just happen to be brilliant. They have amazing voices when they scream. I mean, it's not just someone screaming, it is a brilliantly controlled, affecting, nuanced thing that they can do when they do that. And so, yeah, I take your point. Yeah, there are some really competent vocalists coming out that are not male in a variety of bands, but that doesn't automatically mean that I think they have any advantage. I think it just so happens that these two vocalists, female identifying vocalists, have used their own voices in brilliant ways, and I think they really, really stand out as a result. One thing that pops in my head, have you ever seen that film Whatever Happened to Baby Jane?
I don't think so.
Okay, you should go and have a look at that. Fucking classic. But there's something about the manic energy of their vocals that it sounds to me like a noise rock version of that film.
This is a PSA, or public sock announcement. Experts have declared Bombas socks as the best way to warm up chilly feet. These pairs are super cushy, soft, and designed for maximum coziness. Plus, for every pair purchased, another pair will be donated, so someone in need of essential clothing can stay warm this winter. Go to bombas.com/listen and use code LISTEN for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/listen and use code LISTEN at checkout.
Unplug your cleaning routine with the Ryobi 18-volt ONE+ cordless cleaning lineup. From the soap-dispensing telescoping power scrubber to the advanced stick vacuum, Ryobi has a solution for every cleaning task. One battery powers over 300 products, giving you the power to do more. Exclusively at the Home Depot.
But yeah, I genuinely, I did struggle to pick what I was going to choose for this episode. And am I completely convinced that I made the right choice? I don't know if I am. But I just really needed to get Julie Christmas on this show because I think she's fucking brilliant. Like, really, really fucking brilliant. She elevates everything that she's involved in.
She does, that's true. I'm keen to know what you would have picked in This's place. So I guess we'll get to that.
Yeah, well, we'll do it. Well, actually, like I said, there's not a lot of lore around Julie, so we'll do a brief tour of some of the other things that have come out. So Made Out of Babies, we spoke about that. That is arguably her main project, if you will, or at least it was for 3 albums, and it's what got her on the map of the alternative kind of community musicians. 2004 to 2012, mainly released on Neurot, which is Neurosis affiliated. Loads of stuff like Grails was on that. Shared the guitarist Brendan Tobin with the band Red Sparrows. I've seen them described as sludge metal, Made Out of Babies. That doesn't sit right with me at all. I saw influences given as Jesus, Lizard and Isis. I think the former, absolutely. Isis for Made Out of Babies, I don't hear a lot of it either.
I'd probably go more to Helmet or heavier Melvins.
Or Melvins or Unsane even, that kind of like noise rocky sort of stuff. I liked the fact they were on Neurot. I thought it brought a lot of balance to that label. I mean, the Neurot catalogue was quite dark and sometimes a bit impenetrable, sometimes a bit po-faced, to be honest. And Made Out of Babies, that even just the name, I think, but just in general, there was a lightness, there was a playfulness and an accessibility to that band. There's a is it DIY or Die that Neurot bands are featured quite heavily in, and there's a bunch of interviews we Made Out of Babies and that are really good. But yeah, they were more approachable in my book, and I think it also suggested that the label itself was signing based on talent, not just based on self-branding. Because I mean, I think, for example, Hydra Head got into this like rut of just sounding like bands that should be on Hydra Head, not is this a good band? It was just like, does this band sound like it should be in Hydra Head? And to me, the label became irrelevant pretty quickly. So in terms of the records, Trophy came out in 2005, again Neurot. Crunchy as hell, that album. It's not the most hi-fi of recordings, but I think it's actually quite a satisfying sound.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, very much a noise rock record, and it has that analog aspect that makes the Isis comparisons a bit irrelevant, in my opinion. A few tracks that stand out: Loosey Goosey, the second one in that.
Yeah, it's a good song. It's a fire breather of a song. It is, yeah, swaggering. It's got a very elastic feel in the way it's performed. Loads of blues work, and I think other than the sheer volume of the track, not really a lot of metal in it. It actually maybe sounds like some of the older Black Sabbath at a push, if you were to say it was any sort of metal. I was going to say that the thing I hear in it is like Alice in Chains style grunginess.
Yeah, well, I think that's what I'm meaning a bit when I say some of the older Black Sabbath. It's got a stodginess to it. It doesn't, if you're saying metal, it's like, right, don't think modern metal or harmonised guitars or, you know, fucking rectifiers or anything. Think old school, like fuzzy stuff. So yeah, this song really showcases the dynamic jumps. I think the third track, El Morgan, is one of the most blatant examples of them doing the verse chorus contrast. They like some really high contrast jumps in there.
What we
It works for a while when it's performed this well and the sound is this good. It can get a bit of a gimmick. It's easy for Made Out of Babies to fall into the habit of just doing, you know, quiet loud, and forgetting to write a song about it. This isn't one of them. I'd say the fourth one, Ire Fire. That's an interesting tune. The verse and the general kind of frantic approach sounds a bit out of their lane, but I think they're trying something different on that, and I think it's kind of stretching their capabilities a wee bit because it's not the tightest. But then again, I like hearing them reach for that. You know, I like that they're trying something different. I like the doubled vocals that are used in it, and the riffs that emerge from all the fuss really sound like Entombed. They sound like death and roll, and as we've touched on many times in the show, I'm really into that. They make some heavy use of thunder and toms in this record, which is good at points, but I would argue that it's perhaps a little bit overused as a technique. You know, and it's like, okay, you did that in like 3 or 4 other songs, but yeah, towards the end of the album, that gets a little bit tiresome, but it's still a good listen.
Yeah, for me, Lucy Goosey was definitely a highlight. I liked Herculoid, the first song. It's got a kind of grungy feel to it when the band go full tilt. The quieter parts sound like Quicksand to me. Her vocal delivery in places sounds like Mike Patton, which I think is probably a good reference point for not just the style but also the range as well.
Fair point. There's a vocalist who was able to go down and do weird shit and stuff. He's probably one of the only male vocalists that could compete, you know, in those extremes.
I like Sugar, the staccato riff and the vocal melody is really cool. It does, in the verses, it does sound like a Sugar High, which is pretty fun. And Pirate has got a cool intro, all those toms and stuff with the huge bass tone. Yeah, the thing which grabbed me in that was the chorus. It's got like a chromatic riff and vocals that are just on the edge of collapse, which I really love it when she does that with her voice. It sounds as though it's just about to fracture, which I'm sure we'll come to because it's a highlight of a lot of our output. Yeah.
So in 2006, also in New Rock, they brought out Coward. Now this is their Steve Albini album, and you know, if you're trying to be a noise rock band or an alternative band, then that was like a kind of badge of honour. With all respect to Mr. Albini, either this is one of his botch jobs or the version that's used on streaming services was very badly chosen. It sounds a bit shit even compared to their previous release, like someone has thrown a wet towel over your head at a concert or something like that. In terms of the actual songwriting, there is something more psychotic about the jagged structure of the songs from the outset. They're a bit more wild, a bit more unusual. They judder a lot and change direction. The timings switch. A couple of standout moments. Proud to Drown, the second one. Our vocal hits on one of our first really overt hooks in the verse to this. She really commits to it. Doesn't really fully follow through though on the promise of that verse into the chorus. I think the chorus falls a wee bit flat. Instrumentally, the lines are great, especially the guitar in that one. The song is really distinct for the others in their repertoire at that point. Yeah. And I think Mandatory Bad Rest, the fourth one, A really strong, catchy twist in the chorus, albeit it doesn't explode, it just sort of happens. I mean, it sounds professional, but that, I think some of what they do in that song needed leaned into more. They had some really good ideas and just didn't really fully commit to them.
Yeah.
Again, I'm putting this maybe at Albini. The chorus just doesn't pop the way I think it should, and the way it might have with a different producer. We know how much he disliked producing, you know, and I think live, the sheer volume, the impact of that one might just take that song up a few levels.
I found this record to be really samey. A lot of the songs start with bass only. A lot of the similar it does have that kind of explosive vibe in places. It does feel a bit like off the hook, off the chain almost, like it could be improvised. It obviously wasn't, but yeah, there's also a lot of sameness and construction in places. That being said, another strong opener on this, Silverback. It steps up the intensity compared to the first record, which is the key differentiator, I think, between these two albums. Even though I do find it samey, it is more intense. Lots of really undulating riffs in there that reminded me of Helmet. And then the other one I liked was Mr. Prison Shanks. It's like a dark kind of Fugazi song. Some quite twisted and angular guitars in the verses that are quite post-punk, and then it's got a half-time chorus with a vocal that almost reminded me of like Marilyn Manson doing like a Nirvana song, like they do Friendly Unit Shifter, you know, when Kurt would do the kind of twisted, kind of noisy kind of vocal style. It sounded to me, sometimes her voice sounds exactly like how I imagine that might sound. She's got the same kind
It's a fucking wild cover version.
When she turns on, yeah, it would be. See, when she turns on the grit, it does remind me of the way that he turns on the grit in his voice as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of points in here where, again, Steve Albini's production doesn't really do it any favours. Like, I feel it's crying out for some multi-tracking.
I think you're probably right. Maybe that's where the sameness comes from as well, because you're getting similar tones. Like, if you work with a producer, they might go, or if you're going to do that, then maybe we'll make it sound a bit different here and there. Do you know what I mean?
He's like, let's get a good tone and let's play the full album like that. And I think that lack of production kind of drags it down a wee bit at times. I think what you hear is a more complex set of songs in terms of writing, stripped back to a less complex production, inverted commas. And I can see the arguments, especially if you're a band at that stage in your career, with the kind of moving in the kind of circles they were moving in, as to why you would record with Steve Albini. I mean, Steve Albini is a legend in that field, but I just don't think it really helps us at all. I think they've been unfortunate in that respect. I'm not sure everyone agrees with me. There's maybe, I mean, again, Steve Albini was fucking hated streaming services, and it could well be that the streaming services and whoever's uploaded these has chosen badly, or the compression has been very unkind to them. Maybe there's a massive difference when you hear them pristine, but unfortunately a lot of people now are listening to them on streaming services. That's what's left, and some of their other records don't sound bad, and this just doesn't sound great in my book. So yeah,
I was going to say, one thing we didn't really speak about in the Albini episode is that I think, see, even if you're a good band that plays really well and you're tight as fuck, you can have a series of off days. If you're not getting a lot of shots at something and you just want to get what's there, if you're having a bad day or the band's having an off day, then that's going to come across as well.
Maybe, yeah.
You know?
But I do think, like, Mandatory Bed Rest, for example, suggests there's stronger songs that with just a wee bit of panache in that production phase would have just been next level, and I don't hear it. So it takes us to 2008, and this time it was on The End Records and an album called The Ruiner. Now, this is the one I think probably a pretty strong case could have been made. Yeah, for that.
Wow.
For that. Well, I'm saying that from the perspective of it being a big fan favourite as well. So it's post Albini. The album kicks off with a lot of production fun. Notably, like, it immediately starts with them messing about with production, which is in stark contrast to the previous record. And it sounds 2 times as full and as heavy as the prior album. And that, actually, if you're listening to them sequentially, I found it quite a relief. Like, oh, thank God, they're actually, like, you get that punch when the songs kick in, which was just not there in the other one. I think it's fairly uncontroversial, certainly amongst fans of the band, that it's the best calling card for the band overall. I take it you're not of that.
Struggle to connect with this one.
Yeah.
There's only really 2 highlights for me in this record. I don't know what it was. Maybe I was listening to it at a strange time, or maybe I was getting fatigued because of the way that we do this sometimes, But yeah, I just struggled to really find anything to latch onto with this. And to be fair, like, the first thing I listened to when we were doing the research was the Cult of Luna record, which I think is stunning.
Yeah.
So it's really difficult for any band to reach those highs again, And by this point, I kind of felt as though I'd heard all of the tricks. I'd heard everything they could do, and they've done a lot of good songs before this, and this one just didn't really grab me. With that being said, though, I did really like Invisible Ink. There's some really class backing vocals, and the way it dips in at staccato is fun. There's a hooky section in a few places in it, like around 1 minute 18. And her voice gives me shades of Kate Bush in those places.
Yeah.
Bunny Boots is the other highlight for me. It's got a really weird opening riff, which I thought sounded really fun. And it drops into a kind of marching rhythm thing, which is cool. And then it builds up at the end where Julie's voice gets more and more frantic, which I like.
I mean, I do like it when she does that, yeah. I mean, I think the first one, Cooker, that's their most streamed tune overall as a band. There's a kind of quizzical, mathy guitar riff that's combined with some Eastern scales that I think sort of accounts for part of that higher streaming figure. It's very interesting. The song has almost everything. So it's got atonality, it's got fury, it's got weirdness, it's got a bunch of sharp, jaggy edges. It just lacks a strong melodic shift in it. It's not all been played in the same kind of route, but it just has that feel of like a very, very well worked down jam that needs to just shift into something much stronger and more melodically hooky. And it's so frustrating for me hearing it, because I'm like, oh fuck man, this could have been absolutely like world beating. It's still very good. I just think it just was missing one element, and it maybe only would have needed to do that once. It's like that song Captain Midnight that we spoke about by Tomahawk, but it just has that one melodic phase that makes you go back to it over and over and over again. It just brings it all together. I think like Invisible Ink and The Major, tracks 3 and 4, are definitely the sound of more mature songwriting and a stronger sense of identity in the band as well. And I want to pick out the 7th track, Stranger. I think that's probably the band's best individual song. It plods, it's dark and dissonant, it goes down this weird noise rock path, but it's elevated by great dynamics, and it's got a central lyrical theme that properly shakes you, with a really stunning vocal performance behind it as well. The production technique of allowing us to hear her voice echoing in the corridors. You know, they do that sometimes where they've taken off all the gates and you can hear her down the end of, I'm assuming, whatever chord they were recording, and I think that's really good. It amplifies the rawness of what she's doing, because her voice is just there and she's fucking going for it, and you're not hearing any distortion, you're not hearing any post-production, you're just hearing a woman in a room with a fucking really powerful voice when she chooses to let it go to its extremes. The band has jauntier, riffier tracks, but I just think this one is a wee bit special.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think if you are listening to this and you're curious about this band, you've maybe heard the name or whatever, or you're interested in the associated names, stuff like Unsane, stuff like Queen Adrena, stuff like Neurosis, I would also say stuff like Babes in Toyland, then I'd probably, in fact I would strongly advise starting with that album and working backwards, because I think it's the easiest one to listen to as well, sonically.
Mm-hmm.
Unplug your cleaning routine with the Ryobi 18-volt 1 Plus cordless cleaning lineup. From the soap-dispensing telescoping power scrubber to the advanced stick vacuum, Ryobi has a solution for every cleaning task. One battery powers over 300 products, giving you the power to do more. Exclusively at the Home Depot.
Now, another project she's done, which a lot of people actually know her for, is Battle of Mice. Mark, you spilling a wee bit of water in yourself there, son.
A little drop there. Just
Looks like you're lactating, that's fine. When the clip goes out.
Damn.
You share the good news. So, Battle of Mice in 2006 brought out an album called A Day of Nights. The project also has a couple of EPs, split EPs, funnily enough. I think there's a split EP with...
Jisoo.
Is it Jisoo? There's one we made out of babies as well, I think.
Oh.
So it's kind of strange, but... She formed this with Josh Graham, who's also in Red Sparrows and A Storm of Light, after they'd met in Austin, Texas. Now, was it maybe at South by Southwest they met? According to Julie Christmas, this album specifically follows the timeline of their relationship, both growing and then decaying. She says that apparently when they met, they hated each other immediately. But after they toured the West Coast together, a quote, long-distance relationship ensued, the furious and occasionally harrowing nature of which is reflected in the music of Battle of Mice, with Josh Graham in Los Angeles and Julie Christmas in New York. It is a fairly tempestuous album. There's a few bits in it that are, you can sort of infer problematic relationship moments into it. The first track, The Lamb and the Labrador, first two notes of that song just keep making me think I'm listening to Black Sabbath. It's the same fucking notes.
Yeah.
But yeah, the album itself definitely justifies comparisons with both the noise rock bands and ISIS this time, because that whole thing earlier on, they sound like Jesus Lizard and ISIS. I never heard the ISIS bit. You hear it in this. I mean, this guy's in post-metal bands anyway, and you hear a lot more of the tremoloed guitar and big drop-tuned lower string riffs. For example, Bones in the Water, the second track, has a lot of that.
Got a much higher play count than other songs, that one as well.
Aye. The song, the sixth one, At the Base of the Giant's Throat, contains a 911 call that Julie Christmas states took one take to make, and then she says, quote, I am actually not allowed to talk about that. So again, you can listen to it and infer what you like. Before the album's closing song, Cave of Spleen, was recorded. A band member, an unnamed band member, was said to have accidentally fallen down a staircase. Again, read what you will into that. It's a great sounding record. It has some really good dynamics, some really big moments, and it will definitely appeal to the post-metal fans. I just don't actually have a lot of emotional connection to this album, so it occupies a kind of weird place in that I find it impressive, I find it technically impressive. there's nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't actually emotionally impact upon me at all. What did you think of it?
It's atmospheric and sludgy. It's definitely post-metal. I honestly think I would have enjoyed it more if the Cult of Luna record didn't exist. You know what I mean?
Well, that's it, because the Cult of Luna record is a post-metal record, but done much better.
Yeah. I still think it's really decent. It's quite eerie in places. Bones in the Water does have that eeriness. It starts off with a whispering, which is dead uncanny. And then it's got kind of some creepy, odd sounds that fall in between the riffs. Sleep and Dream is a real downbeat song with some really nice textures, but it's kind of macabre. And Wrapped in Plain is almost like a ballad, which I didn't expect. It's kind of sad. It's quite a sad song.
Midsummer blazed her rotting cage. Death took his hat off at the grave.
I think it probably would have been well received at the time, you know, and yeah, the Cult of Luna record came along and it's like, well, if you want to hear her doing a post-metal record, then this is the record.
Yeah, but I mean, that was a full decade later. It's maybe something we haven't really illustrated in the timeline here is, so the third Made It a Babies album came out in 2008. Then the album we're doing this week, the one we're focusing on, The Bad Wife, was out in 2010. But then there's a 6-year gap, and I saw her doing like a bit of a promotional tour for that with Johannes Persson, the singer of Cult of Luna, for the Mariner record, and she basically was a little bit emotionally burned out from singing, but also she started a family, I think she started a couple of businesses, went and lived a personal life, and then waited until she felt the need to go back into music again. So it was a good 6 years out, and I mean, you've mentioned it, so we should go into it again. We're only touching it briefly here, but yeah, Mariner by Cult of Luna. You can go back and listen to Somewhere Along the Highway episode to hear this in a bit more depth, but I think it's up there alongside any Cult of Luna records, not just alongside any of her records. The third track, we picked that out at the time, Wreck of the SS Needle, was a choice cut then.
Incredible.
It still is. The fifth track, Cygnus, bit of an epic. It has some absolutely brilliant melodic turns in it. And I think that shows you how extra powerful she can be when the music just melodically shifts underneath, and more than just the expressive nature of her vocal, you have melody compounding that. And I think more of that would have been good on some of the Made It a Babies records, especially when they've done all the hard work of everything else and then they just lack that. I just think it's a better take on the post-metal approach, and despite only having 5 tracks, it's a really big record with a lot to get your teeth into.
Yeah,
you can go back to it a number of times.
I'd put like Chevron. Her voice is in top form in that. It showcases all the good things about her vocal style. It's all in here. And Cult of Luna's post-metal racket is just, second to none.
Yeah, it's
an excellent backdrop for how sinewy her voice can often be, and when it combines with, I guess it's Jordan's voice, Johannes's voice, it's pretty special in that song.
I think it's also a good way to illustrate what I was saying earlier on. Cult of Luna are a really good band. I really like Somewhere Along the Highway. There's a bunch of their other stuff that I think is good. I struggle to get really repeated listens though, because Johannes Persson is probably about as good as a vocalist gets in that genre, and I still just find that kind of boring after a while. Whereas this record with her vocal on it is so much more interesting, just with that extra element, all those different aspects of range and expression. And it does kind of underline to me how so much post-metal is kind of formulaic, and those male vocal takes on it, I think it's worn pretty fucking thin, to be honest. So yeah, this is something I would point to as Exhibit C, my lud, in that respect. The only other one to really go into in any depth is Ridiculous and Full of Blood. Came out in June 2024 under the name Julie Christmas this time. It's not just her though. She's very clear in the promotional stuff for this as well. It's actually a combination of all the different people that played in it and the producer. It's got appearances from Johannes on it again and stuff as well. She's like, it's our record. It's my name, but it's our record. I have to admit to you, prior to this, not having spent a lot of time with this, I did listen to it when it came out. I thought, oh, it sounds good, and yet I never went back to it. Obviously, I forced myself to sit in it for a bit this time. It features a lot of the familiar noise rock, post-metal, hybrid stuff. It does make good use of more synthy components, and I think it's impressive on early listens. The first track in it, Not Enough, I think is easily one of the best tunes she's done.
Absolutely.
It's a really strong melodic structure to that chorus. I mean, I'm bringing that up again, but it just shows how fucking great she is when she's afforded a band doing a melodic movement that complements her singing. And yeah, it's a great song for re-listens. That is one that I've done a lot. I can see that song appearing in my Wrapped at the end of this year. Yeah, very, very good standout moment.
Yeah, it's a cracking song. It's kind of sparkly. It's got a really threatening energy.
So it's a weird verse and that clicky approach in the drums, but all it does is make the chorus explode.
Totally, and when it does explode, it feels cinematic almost. Yeah, which is what I really like about that song.
The second one, Supernatural, was a pretty popular cut off this record, and it does feature a good use of arps. Johannes makes an appearance on I think it's the fifth track, End of the World. I will say I'm not sure that tracks like the fourth one, Thin Skin, I don't know if that brings anything to Julie Christmas's portfolio that wasn't already better represented. There are a few This Is Totally Fine moments on this album. I don't think there are many bad moments on it, but there are just a few that I'm like, we've done this. Like let's explore some new territory. I think Kids, the seventh track on, makes for a really distinct change in sound. There's sort of like playful electronics in that. The eighth one, The Lighthouse, is sonically impressive and very intense. I saw in interviews she was saying that was actually added last. I think it was a bit something of an afterthought, but turned out to probably be her favourite part of the record. I think the chorus vocals and use of atmospherics are really good in that one. The structure, however, leads to a bit of a familiar trap. It's effectively someone roaring over one root note, which I've said is a blight in post-metal in particular, just jamming on one root, going up and down, but hovering, like, oh, for fuck's sake, just change something. So I think there's a lot about that song to admire. I can understand why she likes it, but again, I think it's lacking in terms of melodic dynamics. And then the ninth one, Blast, I think it's a standout for me. It's a lot of cheeky, very feral Babes in Toyland energy. As well as a really brilliant dissonant guitar motif. I mean, I fucking love a dissonant guitar, and that one does it really, really well.
I think the only one I'd point out there is I actually quite like Thin Skin. I like the helmety energy to the metal guitars. The chorus leans on the guitars to give a rhythm, which I think is really aggro, but suits. I mean, I know it suits because she's done it before. and then her vocals occasionally just full on feral in places, and it's a nasty but fun song. I think it's a really good album.
But fun.
But fun.
Who doesn't like but
Who
fun?
doesn't like but fun? I think it's a really good album in all honesty, and it takes in everything from her career, which is what I like about it.
Yeah.
You know, it brings in elements from, like, when it does the post-metal thing, it sounds a bit like Cult of Luna. It doesn't sound like
That's true.
the Battle of Mice stuff, you know, and when it is noisy and stuff like that, it sounds like a better version of Made Out of Babies. I think it's a really great record.
I mean, it certainly shows that she's still totally relevant and putting out good quality material. You do kind of hold your breath with any of these acts that have been off the scene for a while, but no, it was pretty reassuring. Some other bits and bobs that she's done. She did some guest vocals for Mouth of the Architect. She did a track called Generation of Ghosts with them, which is more doomy post-metal. It's okay. It didn't blow my mind. She appeared on From Beyond Love by a group called Strings of Consciousness. It's kind of an odd project. It features a variety of different guests from all kind of walks of music. It features the vocalist of Magazine, for example, and it's got J.G. Thirlwell, amongst others. Pretty interesting. She's appeared on the album Wronger, so Wrong, E-R, Wronger, by the band Pigs. Which is, I think it's a partner's guy, Andrew. He's the vocalist in this band. Filthy noise rock, like really filthy noise rock, a bit like Whores or Cherubs, more grunty Jesus Lizard. And it actually turns out that it's the project of Dave Curran, who was the original bassist in Unsane. And it does, you can totally hear that. And she did some stuff with a project called Spylcopa. Spylcopa is a project with Candiria guitarist John LaMacchia, Greg Puciato of Dillinger Escape Plan, and Jeff Kashid of ISIS.
Well, it's interesting. It's not really. It's mostly just a John solo thing. I think Greg appears on one or two songs in the first record. Julie's on one or two songs, but he's since done 2 other records.
Has he?
Yeah. And
it had a funny vibe, because even in the way that the stuff is posted, it's like the debut EP and stuff like that. It's like he clearly had high hopes for this project, but I don't think it's really like...
I mean, the last one was in 2020. The last record came out. I think it was 2020. Yeah, so he's kept it going. It's a weird project. It's kind of alt rock, chorusy, stodgy.
Yeah.
But it does have some interesting things going on around about it, which is a bit more noisy and stuff.
Okay.
But it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, it didn't really come together all that well. The EP that I spent time with, the track Bloodletting, was the best track on it, and that's the one that Julie sings in. Again, just brought something better.
Yeah.
To the proceedings.
The debut album Parallels, she's on a song called Handmade Flaws, which sounds exactly like a Julie Christmas song. It's fine. The chorus has got some fun double track vocal things going on, but the riff feels quite lumping and plodding. She's also on a song called Insolent, which has got really big alt rock but heavy alt rock energy.
Yeah.
And the vocals are really buried in the mix in that one, which is weird. But I didn't really find much to grab onto with that. I only listened to the first record because it was actually really difficult to find out credits for what song, who was on what song.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. Yeah.
But
hers is pretty obvious. It's a bit of a shrug for me. Maybe they'll do something great, but I've not heard it yet. So that only really leaves The Bad Wife for 2010. Julie, speaking about the Bad Wife album to Noise Creep, Noise Creep, the site? It's got some pretty good stuff in it. So the interview goes, when we started working on The Bad Wife, I was involved in a few different projects that were rough, angry, and involved a lot of screaming. I won't ever be able to separate myself from this kind of performance, and I don't want to. I do know that in day-to-day life I get overwhelmed with emotion about things that have nothing to do with anger, just like
Unplug your cleaning routine with the Ryobi 18-volt 1 Plus cordless cleaning lineup. Our powerful and versatile tools make cleaning a breeze. One battery powers over 300 products, giving you the power to do more. Visit ryobitools.com to learn more, exclusively at the Home Depot.
everyone else. This project started as a way to show the importance of other feelings, like love. Once the heavier projects ended though, I noticed that the songs on The Bad Wife started to get heavier. One of the last songs we did is a screamer involving a James O'Brien Yeti special. So yeah, this started as a deliberate attempt to push away from what she was starting to get sort of typecast as, and you can hear it.
Stars twist. Night's last confetti on her face. And rain.
You can hear there's like 4 or 5 tracks here. You're like, oh, this is the mellower, weirder end of things.
Yeah, it's got vaudeville energy in places.
It does, yeah, it does actually, and that's an interesting observation because I've got a comment that ties in with that shortly. In the promo cycle for Bad Wife, she referred to a forthcoming, which would be a fourth Made It a Babies album, and a tour for that band, that neither of which materialised. She also referred to a book album collaboration project called The Scribbles and Scrapes of Amy Anyone, where she was doing like a soundtrack to some, I think it's some sort of graphic novel, graphic children's book.
Nice.
And if that does exist, it must be under a different name, because I tried and I couldn't track it down, so I don't know if it ever came to pass. But what we know is that there was material sitting about, both from Made It a Babies and from this other thing that she was working on. So this was intended as a departure for the Full-Throated Fury, but it was made at a time when this new Made It a Babies album was supposedly under construction. That didn't appear. So it seems to me that some of the heavier sounds for that, or at least some of the energy around the heavier tracks she'd been working on, manifested on this record when it wasn't originally intended to. And as a result, this album does actually have at least 2 or 3 moments of real fury, which, knowing this now, I do try to imagine it had it all been kept a little bit more down low, and I think that would have been pretty interesting. That said, by having the 2 or 3 tracks here, a bit like the 2024 album, it manages to run the gamut of what she can do, and that's pretty interesting because you do get to hear her go full range on this album. I also think we should mention as well the cover of this record. I really like it. It's strangely sinister, like world. It's almost like a changing room in a very high-end shop that's made of like cake and chandeliers, and it's different shades of pink. I think it's kind of a playful reflection on that sort of fairy tale lullaby aesthetic that she's woven through the songs as well. In terms of the tracks, stop me if you want to pick up on something here, but the first one, July 31st. Released as a promo single, really foregrounds dynamics and shows her range. She can really sing when she wants to, as per her childhood influences. You mentioned Bjork earlier. I think there's a really Bjorkish quality to her bigger sung vocal lines in this.
Yeah.
And there's also moments like, I think it's about 4 minutes 50 seconds, where there's, I would class it as a brutal euphoria.
Yeah, I really like the guitar mix in this song. They're both hard panned, and then they've got an acoustic down the middle, which gives it a bit of breathing space. It's got a really big ending, really strong opener. Like, she's really good at having strong openers on her records.
Yeah,
really strong
that's
opening
true.
tracks.
That's true. So the second one is a big one, actually, given the nature of it. If You Go Away.
If you go away on that summer's day, then you might as well take the sun away. All the birds that flew.
So it'll be credited, if you're listening on Spotify, it's credited to Julie Christmas. You probably know, or at least suspect, that this is not a Julie Christmas song.
The cover on it?
Yeah, so it's a cover of a Jacques Brel song called Ne me quittez pas, which means don't leave me.
Ne me quitte pas, il faut oublier, tout peut s'oublier, qui s'enfuit déjà, oublier le temps.
And I think it was an English writer called Rod McEwen. He translated it into an English version and kind of helped make it famous. But since then, I mean, there's been big releases of this song by Frank Sinatra.
If you go away on this summer day, then you might as well take the sun away, all the birds that flew.
Barbra Streisand, who else? Dusty Springfield, Neil Diamond, Tom Jones. Pretty much everybody in your granny's record collection has done a version of this song. And it's a pretty dark song, so I can understand why she wanted to do a version of it. I don't particularly like the song. I don't particularly like that style of classic songwriting, but I do like her interpretation of it, and she does a really good job of it, and it clearly has some amount of meaning for her.
If you go away, if you go away, but if you stay, make you a day like no day has been.
The deranged lullaby approach really does help distinguish the record, and I don't know if I've heard her do any other cover versions. Maybe I have and not known it, but yeah, I think it works.
Yeah, it's got kind of industrial elements at the start, then it becomes like a twisted modern vaudeville sort of thing, which is what I really liked. The piano tone is awesome. I love the way it kind of falls out of the chorus and descends into some really spacey guitars. It's just a really well composed bit of music. Her taking it takes it a totally different way, her own way, and it's really, really good as a result. Yeah, it's cool. There's a bit in the second verse which sounds like a modem, which is cool sound. Yeah.
So the third track, Bow or Bow. It's a noise rock song. I'd like to come back to it in 2 minutes in the context of something else. The fourth one, Secrets All Men Keep (brackets Saltbridge Part 2), is a very...
Where is Part 1?
No, I don't know if there is, or maybe it just never made the cut.
Not danger from behind a fence, but the cold, quiet threat of hulking menace.
It's a very different sounding track. However, I mean, I've listened to this quite a number of times, and musically, in terms of writing, this track is completely consistent with Julie Christmas's sensibilities. The chord changes, the structures, overall, it's totally consistent. The delivery is what's completely different, and I think really, really welcome. I can imagine a bunch of songs, probably even from a variety of projects, that she could have reinterpreted and done this way, and that's how they would come out, or something close to this. It does show that even though the choice of delivery has tended to be this full-throated, bass-driven, noise rock, clanky, industrial post-something, that the songs can work in completely different forms, which I don't think can actually be said of a lot of bands in that genre. I mean, maybe you could do like a slide guitar honky-tonk version of Unsane, but there's not that many bands in the noise rock genre that would really translate so well into something like this. There is like a bombastic, churning, shrieked version of this out there in a parallel dimension, and I can completely imagine how it would go, and I think it would probably go quite well. But yeah, playing up the ghostly fairy tale energy in this is a big part of what helps distinguish this collection from the wider catalogue. Yeah,
there's some creepy sampled vocal sounds in this, which I like. Our main vocals occasionally double tracked just right in the stereo image, which is a really odd choice. Lead guitar and tone gives me James Bond vibes.
Yeah.
There's a solo that pops in halfway through the song which sounds like Radiohead, but generally how the vocals are handled in this song I think is what makes it. They're just produced and mixed in a really interesting way that kind of makes you go, oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Number 5, 6 pairs of feet and 1 pair of legs. There's a bit of an old school Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds feel to me, kind of in the tradition of something like Red Right Hand, or even maybe closer to The Carney. Have you ever heard The Carney by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds?
While Bus Bellini waved his smoking pistol round, saying,
"The mat was dead meat. We can't afford to carry that weight."
While the whole company's standing about, not making a sound, and turning.
Again, we're talking about a wee bit of that vaudeville kind of thing. Now, the 6th track, Headless Hawks, this is the other noise rock song, and that's when I wanted to come back to Bow or Bow. It sounds to me like something that would have been part of Made Out of Babies. And I think we're maybe looking at the remnants of whatever that 4th record was that never happened. And I'll factor that into my conclusion a wee bit. The 7th one, The Wig Maker's Widow. Feels more in keeping with the dark cabaret and the sinister nursery rhyme theme.
Definitely.
Now you mentioned vaudeville. I would make comparisons to the band the Dresden Dolls and by extension Amanda Palmer. Shiver goes down my spine. This tune is another showcase of her vocals, but in a very different sense. I think it ramps up to like new levels of throat ripping intensity. I mean, it is manic at points. I think that the impact of that's kind of emphasised by the fairly sparse, dark, folky shanty that goes around it. I mean, having her go so tonto amid such a kind of ethereal backdrop is something that we've not really heard before, because usually the band is also elevating their sound. So, it's not drop-tuned post-metal. It's just this... It's more despairing. It's like escalated despair.
Aye, it's... I like the deadly. I've written deadly cabaret feel to it. It's got accordions. I think there's even a trumpet. A trumpet at one point as well. It's very, very cool. The overlap on vocals as her voice gets more and more manic towards the end is really great production. Yeah. I wanted to go back to Headless Hawks for a minute, because
sure.
I think that sounds quite post-metal-y in places, but it doesn't have the tone, the guitar tones.
Yeah, that's right. It's not
which
skippy.
I really appreciated. I love the rhythm of the choruses, the staccato rhythm. Her voice is buried in the mix, and the whole song like twists and contorts in really impressive ways. I actually listened to this whole record as soon as we left after the last Avril Part episode. It was quite different, obviously.
Yes.
But no, I liked how this went in so many different directions, and going from Headless Hawks into a Wig Maker's Widow is like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Totally
it definitely takes chances that I don't think she's been able to take in the context of some of the other projects. Now, the 8th one, I do think it's a little bit throwaway. I Just Destroyed the World. It's quite short.
It's like a segue almost, isn't it?
It's a bit of a twisted lullaby. I think it's about 2.5 minutes, so it's not quite a bit, but it also doesn't quite feel like a fully formed song. The 9th one, though, I think is significant. When Everything Is Green. one of the clearest hooks on the record. And again, to go back to your discussion of vaudeville, another previous episode, this brings a bit of Paper Chase energy.
Definitely.
Yeah, that twisted John Congleton thing, I think I can really hear that in this. So just to harken back to the two noise rock tracks, it's interesting to see that they're the exception here and not the rule. They do deceptively sort of bring this album more in line with some of their other releases, yet they're obviously the only two tracks on the record that sit in that space. I don't know. It's interesting to imagine the record without those two songs, though, because it would have been presumably replaced by something else and not just reduced to an EP. But it would have been a very distinct collection had it been completely stripped back and really committed to this nursery rhyme type thing. Those two, I'm not saying they're there as fan service, but certainly if you're into Julie Christmas and you hear that she's got this record coming out, those two probably were a bit soothing because you were like, that's what I was waiting on. That's it. And then maybe, hopefully, you get into the other stuff around that. So maybe they're on there for that reason. Maybe they're just on there because she'd been working on them with someone else. They weren't going to happen and she was like, I don't want to waste these. I don't know. They do seem a bit out of step with the rest of the record, but they also give it a nice bit of balance and they accentuate the dynamics of it. As a conclusion, again, I say it's awkward. I'm not strictly sure this is her best work overall. I'm not. I have to say, much as I really love the overall aesthetic, it's definitely not a masterpiece of a record. I think throwaway track here, a couple of tracks that are a wee bit light on melodic hooks there, but I love Julie Christmas as an overall artistic force and creator. As I said earlier on, I think she makes everything she touches better. I think this album represents a conscious decision to mix up her sound, which is an encouraging thing to see any artist do, really, even though the results aren't always great. She was known at this point for one thing, more or less, and deliberately pushed away from that, which you get points for that, because it could have absolutely sank. I noticed actually that in one of the interviews she did alongside Johannes Persson for Mariner, he said it was this album that made him really want to work with her. He said he liked Made Out of Babies, it was fine. He said he liked Battle of Mice, that was fine. But it was this record that he was like, fuck man, she's great. I really hope we get to do something together. And apparently the first time they tried to do something together, it didn't really happen. But he was just like persevered to make Mariner happen further down the road. And that's a big compliment for this record, because he's associated with big fucking stomping heavy, stuff with like 12-minute tracks and that. And this is not that. So fair play to him. We need Julie Christmas on this show. I mean, I would love to get Julie Christmas on this show, but we need her involved in this show. We need to have covered it. I think, as I said, there is a strong case that could be made that maybe The Ruiner by Made Out of Babies would have been a good suggestion. I don't think it's not as brave a record as this. It's probably a more consistent record than this, but it's not as interesting overall. There's lots of good noise rock records in the world, lots of very good ones. Yeah, and likewise, I think Battle of Mice, maybe some people will be howling about that. Battle of Mice it's a competent post-metal album with a very, very good vocalist on it. I think that's kind of all it is. There's some good moments on it, really good moments on it, but it's not something I'll spend a lot of time with. But as I say, God damn it, Julie Christmas elevates every single one of the projects that we've mentioned. Every single one of them, including the ones that she only sporadically touched. She's made them all slightly or much better by injecting the insane amounts of character that she can't help but have in her vocal, the nuance, and just also, let's not forget, the outright ability that distinguishes her from people like David Yow. I love David Yow, but he can't fucking sing. Julie Christmas has all of that, and she can fucking sing, which is amazing. A bit like Katie Jane Garside. Would we be talking about any of those records, her solo stuff aside, would we be talking about any of those records if she wasn't involved in them? Would I be talking about Mariner? No. Would I be talking about any of Made Out of Babies records in the context of this show? Sorry guys, but probably not, because I fucking love a good noise rock record, but without Julie Christmas, those records aren't making that upper echelon. And same with Battle of Mice, I certainly wouldn't be talking about that without Julie Christmas involved in it. No danger. And whilst I think she still hasn't brought all of the best facets of her work together for the duration of an entire record, I just want us to acknowledge what she's achieved cumulatively across her career, and certainly with the encouraging results on her last album, acknowledge that maybe she's still got an absolute ripper or two in her as well, because she's still producing at a high level.
Yeah, good artist. I'm really glad we got to spend time with her. I think this is a good record. My favourite is the latest one, Ridiculous and Full of Blood.
It's a good sign.
And I will go back to that a lot, I think, because I think she's a very talented
playing this summer
individual
as well.
Yeah, just one show in England.
Yeah, that seems to be the way of it. I have tried, folks, in my capacity as a very average concert promoter to secure a Julie Christmas show for Scotland, and it's not happened. And I don't think I'm the only one, if we ask David.
Yeah.
God rest his soul. But yeah, I hope she does come up here at some point, or at least I hope she plays a show in England that I can afford to go to.
Yeah, it's not a festival.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, cool. So what are we doing next week then?
Let's keep that a fucking secret. But in exchange for keeping that a secret, let's tell them a wee bit about what we're doing at the end of the month.
Sure.
Mark, you ever heard of Centurion?
I have. I hadn't before I started doing research though.
Centurion were arguably the highest profile neo-Nazi metal band, overtly neo-Nazi metal band in the world at one point. Thousands and thousands of album sales, which is no small feat when you consider that they couldn't get on the fucking radio. And they had a frontman called Arno Michaelis. Now, Arno Michaelis is very much a changed man from those days. He's a writer, he's a campaigner, he's an advocate. He does a lot of work. Mainly, as he says, he'll never make up for some of the stuff he did when he was a younger man, but that doesn't mean that he won't keep trying. You may have seen him on an interview recently for Insider, which is Business Insider's YouTube channel. An absolutely brilliant interview about the far right that touched on his music career. And basically in that interview he talks about how music was what radicalised him. And yeah, it was a fantastic listen. His books are very interesting, very raw accounts of his time, both as a neo-Nazi, and his second book, which we'll talk about a bit in the show, is about a shooting at a Sikh temple that was done by a boy who was a member of Hammerskin Nation, which Arno Michaelis actually helped found. That's the world's biggest fascist skinhead group. So, I mean, the guy has pedigree in that world that he's now spending a lot of time trying to make amends for. And so I approached him and just said, look, Arno, can we do an episode about how music is used to radicalise? And didn't really expect much. And he got back to me the same night. He's like, that sounds really good. Let's do it. So since then, we've been kind of workshopping it a bit. We're going to interview him. We're going to get, we'll probably get a wee bit of insight regarding his own experiences. But I don't want to retread too much of what's covered in these other interviews. I would recommend that people go and look at some of his stuff, especially the Insider interview. It's brilliant. And then come back to us. And I want to use his knowledge to really probe music as a gateway for radicalisation, which was a really, really big thing. Certainly maybe we'll come at it from a punk angle, because that's where he started in kind of oi bands and stuff. In the 70s and 80s in the UK, the likes of the National Front very quickly realised that was going to be a way that they could get their message to young people and make them pay attention. So Arno and ourselves will travel through that difficult subject and hopefully emerge with some primary research of note.
Yes. So really looking forward to that. Probably going to be May. Start of May sometime, about then.
By the time it gets cut down and stuff, yeah. It's a lot of research, folks, so I apologise for not doing an episode last week, but literally last week I read 4 books just in preparation, and 2 of Arno's and 2 others as well, just in preparation for this. So Mark and myself had to kind of clear ourselves a bit of time to do this right, because we don't want to just go into it and go, what's it like being a skinhead?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who's your favourite skinhead band? Mm-hmm. Right, so yeah, there you go. That's coming up in the future. Next week, we'll let you know.
Yep.
Just stay tuned on the channels. Maybe we'll do something a wee bit off-piste.
You can also stay tuned on our Patreon. So if you're a fan of this podcast, then it's only £4 a month, and you get access to
That's fuck all, by the way.
Yep. Episodes.
Minimum wage has gone up. Why do we not get an increase?
I know. You get access to episodes a few days early, with no ads.
Do you know,
incidentally,
our wages have been frozen for 8 years now?
Yeah.
That's shocking, man. People that listen to the show should be ashamed of themselves.
It's paying the bills, that's it.
Go on there and give us a fucking pay rise.
Yes. You also get access to a Facebook group where you can actually, talk to us.
We'll tell the union.
Yeah. You can unionise against us on the Facebook group if you really wish.
We'll unionise right back at you.
Yeah.
We'll get back to a stalemate.
And then Yeah, you can also, like I said, get access to ad-free episodes and be a part of this show, which might be a thing we're going to do some more of in the future, is actually bringing on voices from our listeners.
Yeah, we'll probably do some more interactive episodes. And as we say, keep your eyes peeled. Join us in a few weeks to find out what a real life living ex-neo-Nazi legend thinks of Danzig's latest line of merchandise.
Yeah. Yep. Get at us on all the socials, on Songpod, not Twitter, everywhere else you can get us.
Fuck X, yeah. The AAA group, it's on Facebook. I fucking despise Facebook. I despise Meta. I despise the whole fucking lot of them. If you've been watching the news recently, or if you haven't, sorry, go and check out what Facebook's or Meta has just been caught doing in China. Fascinating stuff. But we do have a private group on that site, that godforsaken site. It's good for some things, and one of them is chatting to us, and that's been really, really good recently. We've had some members posting really good music up, new stuff, thanks Tommy. We've had some really good discussions on things like Danzig. We've had some really interesting stuff on cover bands, people putting up their favourite cover band ones. You see I got Illegally Blondie.
Yeah,
fucking brilliant. And Iron Maiden, which won't mean a lot to you if you're not from Scotland, but Iron Maiden spelt like Iron Brew, fantastic. So if you £4 or $4 whatever gets you into that group, and we can blether and swap ideas for shows, give it a bash.
That's it. So yeah, we'll see you next week for something angrier than Julie Christmas.
I don't think that is going to be the case.
I think I'll be angrier than Julie Christmas.
We're making up for Arvo Park, aren't we?
I'll be angrier than Julie Christmas.
Alright, catch you later.
Bye.
James, you wear a lot of hats. You're a veteran and household chef, a self-taught barber and dream chaser and student. You're an ander. At National University, we see the whole you. That's why we've created online and hybrid programs that flex to help you balance your full life so you can focus on what's right in front of you. National University, supporting the whole you. Learn more at nu.edu.
Unplug your cleaning routine with the Ryobi 18-volt 1 Plus cordless cleaning lineup. From the soap-dispensing telescoping power scrubber to the advanced stick vacuum, Ryobi has a solution for every cleaning task. One battery powers over 300 products, giving you the power to do more. Exclusively at the Home Depot.